So, Steve,
Yes.
tell us about some of the top albums according to the Tucson Weekly Critics in 2009.
Well, this year we expanded our survey of critics to include 8 instead of our usual 6. So it's kind of interesting to see what we have a few more albums overlapping this year than usual.
How many of the critics actually knew what they were talking about?
I'd say about half.
Okay, that's good. That's a good.
About half. Well, let's talk about maybe a few of the ones that are on several lists to
Sure.
start out. The Avid Brothers finally kind of broke through this year after being a Tucson favorite for a couple of years now, thanks to the folks at the Rialto who kind of got in on the ground floor of those guys and brought them here. Their major label debut came out this year. It was called I and Love and You. It was produced by Rick Rubin, who I'm sure everyone knows. He's worked with everyone from Johnny Cash to the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And he kind of smoothed the rough edges that the Avett Brothers usually have on their albums. But it's no less satisfying, really, than any of their others. It's just a little less raucous, and the focus is more on the songwriting this time around than usual.
Another local favorite was Nico K. She was on several lists.
She was, and of course it's the year that she decides to move out of Tucson. Her breakthrough album is released, and that's called Middle Cyclone. And it actually was on the Billboard charts at either number 2 or number 3, which is pretty incredible for an artist of her stature. And it's just another great album. She has yet to put out a lousy album, or even a half-assed one. And again, the songwriting has grown by leaps and bounds on this one, and it's also very accessible. Let's see.
Vic Chestnut, I know, kind of a sad one, but he was on at least 2 lists for 2 albums actually this year.
Yeah, he was, including mine. He put out, within 3 weeks of each other, put out 2 albums. One called At the Cut, which was done with a band, a big band with 3 guitarists, and Guy Picciotto from Fugazi, and members of Godspeed You Black Emperor, and Mount Zion, Silver Mount Zion. And then he also put out an album called Skitter on Takeoff, and that was actually produced with Jonathan Richman, who is another Tucson favorite, and Tommy Larkins, who is Jonathan Richman's drummer and a Tucson resident, a longtime fixture of the scene here. That one's a little more subdued, but they're both great albums. And he, of course, I'm sure most people know by now, passed away on Christmas Day in a suicide. And it's a horrible, horrible loss. For my money, he was truly one of the best songwriters of his generation. Let's move on to something a little happier, perhaps.
Yes, let's do the typical 9 questions treatment. Figurative gun to your head, what was the best album of 2009?
That is a very good question. I might have to give it to a band from San Francisco called Girls. Their album, which is called Album.
And how many girls are in Girls?
There are 0 girls
Yes.
in Girls. That's a bizarre story, actually, and we'll be running a feature article on them. They're coming to Club Congress very soon, in the next couple weeks. There's a certain world weariness to the album, but there's also a very sense of optimism in their songs. And it balances 2 things really well, which I think is a tricky thing to do. Everything from kind of Beach Boys harmonies to kind of vaguely psychedelic, I don't want to say soundscapes, but it runs the gamut. Even though there's a certain wholeness about the album. That's a great one, and I wholeheartedly recommend anyone go see them when they come to Congress in a few weeks.
Very cool. So, obviously the new year starts on Friday when this issue's on the stands. Any 2010 albums that, off the top of your head, that you're really excited about coming out soon?
You know what I'm excited about is, and most people this name probably doesn't mean much to them, but a guy named Miles Kurowski, who was the leader for the band called Beulah, which just was a fantastic, underrated band. Real sunny, kind of California pop, kind of bummer lyrics, but sunny songs. And he's been working on this record since Beulah broke up several years ago. And I've heard a couple songs that he's been working on, and they sound great. So that's probably my most anticipated one right now.
Very cool. Last question. Overall, 2009, a good year for music, a bad year for music, an okay year for music. Where does it kind of fit in the aughts?
I think 2009 was a great year, actually. There seemed to be more bands than ever, and more great bands than ever, and there were a lot of records released this year because of that, and there were a lot of great records released this year as well. Should be a good 2010, judging from 2009.
Well, good times. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks.